Very good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to everybody. Welcome to the last day and day three of this international scientific extravaganza of International Conference on Dental Genetics and Clinical Diagnostics, Chapter 2. Today, I present to you a very interesting lecture, and you can see our eminent speaker already on screen. Welcome, Dr. Monali. It is a
Thank
pleasure
you so
and honor
much.
to have you.
Thank you
So,
so much.
before we go into the lecture, I would take the privilege to introduce Dr. Monali on this platform. So, Dr. Monali is presently working as professor and head of Department of Perodontology, KM Shah Dental College and Hospital, Sumandev Vidyapit, Vadodara, Gujarat, and she teaches perodontology from last more than 1 decade. She is also actively involved in teaching evidence-based healthcare since 2007. She is trained for systematic review and meta-analysis from Joanna Briggs Institute, Australia, and worked with stalwart of evidence-based practice like Dr. Gordon Gatt and others in conduction of international level workshops. Her list of publications, which has earned more than 350 citations, includes 9 systematic reviews and meta-analysis in international PubMed Index Journal. Her team is presently working on systematic review on peri-implantitis and one on role of 3 nuts in diabetes mellitus, which protocol is registered with JBI. Her interests of areas of interest are evidence-based healthcare, periodontal treatment needs in Indian setup, and cost-effective periodontal therapy. So I think we are addressing a very important session. Thank you, Dr. Monali, and the
Thank you so
stage is.
much. Thank you so much for the kind introduction. This is like warm welcome to all the participants for today's program. And this is the institute where I'm working at Sumandip Vidyapit, located in Gujarat. And today we are going to my entire efforts will be to demystify about systematic review and meta-analysis. So what we'll do in this next 25 minutes, we'll see what is systematic review and meta-analysis, why we need systematic review and meta-analysis in medical science and practice, and which are the steps if you want to do systematic review and meta-analysis by yourself, which are the steps involved. So quickly, we all know that when we talk about evidence-based practice, the main problem which has come up few decades back is that healthcare provider find out that there is a gap between research and practice. And the very best example here is that in the year 1973, people have already completed 8 clinical trials on acute myocardial infarction using streptokinase. And they found that the streptokinase is really helpful in reducing the mortality. But even after 8 trials, people have kept on doing another 25 trials, still till this streptokinase has become a standard practice. So it has actually led to almost 34,000 odd people of acute myocardial infarction after 1973 to the placebo during this 25 trial period. So this is the harm which people have done by repeating or duplicating the research. Rather, if anyone would have done systematic review and meta-analysis at that very point of time, one could have avoided the duplication of the study. So that's how the concept of systematic review and meta-analysis has come up, because it is actually the summary of all the studies which are addressing a clearly focused question in a very systematic and explicit method, and which will critically appraise the relevant study, collect the data, analyze it, and present it. So this is the concept of systematic review and meta-analysis. In today's world, we are actually jumbling up in many of the jargons of reviews. Like we have literature review, we have scoping review, systematic review, we have umbrella reviews. But today we are going to focus about the systematic review, which is the detailed and systematic, transparent means of gathering, appraising, and synthesizing the evidence to answer a well-defined question. Now, each and every terminology here is very important. Actually, we are going to do a detailed, systematic, transparent gathering of evidences. Then we are going to appraise those, we are going to synthesize all the evidence so that we can answer a well defined question. This is what we are ultimately interested in doing. So, after understanding that definition of systematic review, we know that it's a very specific review and analysis. It involved an explicit methodology. The methodology is a foolproof technique, like it's a very reliable and accurate methodology. The whatever searching or data extraction you are doing is a very comprehensive and exhaustive manner, and it is reproducible. So when we are talking about any research, it should be reproducible, we all know that. So this uh, conduction of systematic review and meta-analysis is a reproducible way, which is not there in any other type of review. So that's why it is considered to be the best evidence. But there are certain weaknesses, right? What has happened is because of the the demand of systematic review and meta-analysis has increased. There are certain weaknesses like the mass production. If you'll go online of to any of the medical databases like your PubMed or Embase, and if you just put a keyword like systematic review and meta-analysis, and say for example medicine dentistry, you will find thousands of systematic review and meta-analysis happening every year. So it's a mass production, and when there is mass production, definitely the quality deteriorate. The second problem with systematic review and meta-analysis is risk of bias. Sometimes the reviewer tend to add on all the studies which themselves are of very poor design. So the product will be of definitely a poor quality. And there is a way of presenting your own opinion in a systematic way in the systematic review and meta-analysis. So these are the only three weaknesses what a systematic review and meta-analysis are having. So why I'm telling you this is that when we ourselves are doing systematic review and meta-analysis, we should know which are the weaknesses which may come across, and we should try to avoid those. So if you want to do systematic review and meta-analysis, there are certain steps. When we are doing anything stepwise, it becomes easy to do. So we are going to focus on steps of doing systematic review and meta-analysis here. So the steps are, to explain you with the steps, I will tell you the difference between research and systematic review and meta-analysis. I'll say SRMA now onwards because it will save our time. So when we say research and SRMA, research is basically a well defined hypothesis. Then you will try to identify what is the gap between research and your area of interest. And in that gap, you will start your own study. Then you will select the design, whether you want to do randomized control trial or a case control study. You will define your inclusion and exclusion criteria. Then you will collect the data as per your inclusion exclusion criteria, and you will analyze. Similarly, if you see on the left side of the slide, we have certain steps of SRMA. It is very similar to your original research. Here also you will define the research question and write a protocol. Here also you are going to do a comprehensive search of all the evidences available for your research question. You will select the studies as per your inclusion and exclusion criteria. You will analyze the studies for its quality. Then you will do data extraction, similarly the way you do collection of data. And you are going to do analysis here also. So it is very similar to your original research. Now we'll find what are the difference here. So the first step, that is how you will define your research question and write the protocol. When I say write the protocol, that means there are the sites like Cochrane protocol, you have Prospero, all those are the sites where you have to register your protocol. Now we all know what is protocol. Protocol means before starting anything, you are deciding that this is the methodology you are going to follow. So that is your protocol. So you will define the research question and you will write the protocol. So that is the first step. Now, when I say research question, that means that we are going to follow the PICO rule. We are going to identify the appropriate question from the available literature, and maybe our clinical question which we are dealing with in our day to day practice. Once you define your research question and write the protocol, you will start doing comprehensive search and select the studies. Why comprehensive search? Because we know in this today's world there are whole lot of databases available. You have Google Scholar, you have Cochrane Library, you have your Wikipedia, you have PubMed, Embase, EBSCO. There are Web of Science. There are so many databases available. From that databases, you have to identify which databases is most appropriate for you. And it is recommended that, so that you cannot miss any of the important evidence, it is recommended that you should do your searching into minimum two electronic database. So that is the rule we have to follow. So minimum two electronic database you have to search, and you have to do even the hand searching. Now, why hand searching is important, that I will tell you in the later part of my presentation. So before you start your searching, the first thing is that you have to establish the list of MASH terminology you are going to use, and you are going to identify the search terms, and according to the search terms, the appropriate database you have to identify. So you will actually plan your search, and this planning will be registered in your protocol. Once you perform the searching, you will start using various booleans, various limits. You can start using various filters there, so that you will have a concise result. But beware of one thing, that whenever we are going to do a systematic review and meta-analysis, we have to always start with a broad searching strategy. So our searching strategy should be broad enough so that we should not miss anything. Once you perform your searching, then you have to manage what has happened during your searching, because this managing the search result will be helpful for you when you are writing your systematic review and meta-analysis. Because I'm not wrong if I say that we are doing systematic review and meta-analysis, because ultimately we are going to publish it somewhere. So managing those search results are very important. Either you can do it with your software, or you can just write it down. That is also an acceptable way of doing it. So this is about the searching, how you should do, but there are certain mandatory things. Like searching for systematic review, as the definition suggests, that it should be explicit, means you should not miss anything, and it should be a well defined systematic way, and it should be reproducible, so that if you have done a searching, and if I am doing the searching using the same database, same mesh terminology and similar boolean, I should get the similar result. So it should be reproducible. Searching here is a reproducible, like the methodology in any of the research. So it should be well documented. And these are the mandatory points in any of the searching you are doing. You have to plan your search. You have to first search the general bibliographic database. You have to search the trial register. Why trial register? I will tell you in the later part of the presentation. You have to develop the search strategies, rerun the search so that you don't miss, and document everything. Make an inclusion exclusion criteria very precise. So these are certain mandatory aspects to understand the search. After searching, I hope it's clear till now. We have done halfway. The second thing is quality assessment of studies. Now, this is the fourth step of doing systematic review and meta-analysis. Now, when we are doing quality assessment of the studies, we are mainly dealing with two biases in systematic review and meta-analysis. The first type of bias is, as we all know, risk of bias. This bias is actually a inherent part of any of the research design, and which will be there in any study, because that's why we say that there can be minimum bias. We never say it's a zero bias. There is minimum risk of bias, but zero bias we never say. The other type of bias, which is the most important for systematic review and meta-analysis, is your publication bias. So what are biases? We know that can, for example, if we are talking about randomized controlled trial, We have selection bias, we have performance bias, we have detection bias, we have attrition bias, and we have reporting bias. So these are the biases which are there as a salient feature of any of the article. What we do when we are doing systematic review and meta-analysis is we explore all these biases, that which are the area where these biases can enter and deteriorate the quality of our included studies. So this is what we are going to do when I'm talking about quality assessment of the included studies in the systematic review and meta-analysis. And these are the very user friendly checklist. You can say they are the tools, they are the checklist which will give you the strength of your study, or which will evaluate the quality of your study depending upon, for example, if you use the Cochrane review form, they have the 3 point scale. Like either they will label your evidence as a low level, moderate level, or high level. Same way, if you will see the grade, they always say either it's a strong or it's a weak recommendations. So this way you have a well defined, very user friendly tools which you can use in your systematic review and meta-analysis to do the quality assess. You have to assess the quality for all the included studies, because if your raw material is poor, your outcome is definitely going to be poor. But you have to choose it, which is the most appropriate for you. Now comes publication bias. As I told you, it's a very important thing, publication bias. Now, from where this publication bias comes? As a researcher, it's a general tendency that if you are not getting positive result, if you are not getting significant result, you tend to put your research file in the drawer. So we say it's a file in the drawer phenomenon. So all your research files which are there in your drawer, which are completed trials but which are never published, so it is not known to the world outside, so that is the publication bias. Publication bias is not the biases by publishers. Okay, so publication bias, how it is going to affect your systematic review and meta-analysis. For example, I'm doing a systematic review and meta-analysis comparing drug A with placebo. All the studies which I am getting from the databases are in the favor of drug A. They are saying that drug A is better than placebo. But what if the studies which has proven that drug A is not at all like is as good as placebo or is not better than placebo? What if those studies are there but never published? We'll never come to know from the databases, from the electronic databases, from anywhere. So we need to identify whether this systematic review and meta-analysis, what I'm doing, whatever articles I'm getting, whatever studies I have included in my SRMA, whether they have publication bias or not. There are different statistical methods to do it, and there are ways of retrieving this unpublished literature. So what you do as a reviewer, you will try to retrieve the unpublished literature from, for example, you can retrieve it from the clinical trial registry. From the clinical trial registry, all the trials which are done, though they are published or not in the literature, it will be there in the registry. So you can retrieve the data from there. So there are ways of minimizing this publication bias, if at all, if it is there. But there are always chances that there will be publication bias. So we have done our quality assessment of the studies. Then the next step is data extraction. So we know for the original research, like for example in the original research, we have the proformas, right? Participants proformas, where we fill all the details either manually or electronically. Similarly, in systematic review and meta-analysis, you have data extraction sheets. Now, what is it, data extraction? Data extraction is as good as your study proforma, where you will collect all the information from the articles you have retrieved to be included in your systematic review and meta-analysis, and it should be a permanent record. How you can do it? Either you can do it electronically, or you can do it as a paper data extraction forms, like you manually enter everything in the diary or in the forms and sign it and keep it. both have their advantages and disadvantages. Like for example, if you are going for paper, um, pen and paper type data extraction format, you can track all the manipulation and modification done in that forms, and you can sign it and keep it and compare it manually. So it has its own advantage. While you are doing when you are doing it electronically, you can track the manipulation here also, but it is a bit tricky thing. But the main advantage of doing it electronically is that it allows you to like converse all your data in the various arithmetic form very easily. When you have large number of data available, the compilation become easy, and definitely paper free, so more environment friendly. And we have tools for this also. Now this is the beauty of SRMA, that you have tools for everything, but the only thing is that you should be able to know that which tool you are going to use. Now for data extraction, you have Sumari from JBI, you have systematic review toolbox, you have Excel sheet, which you are using in your day in and out. That the Excel sheet itself can be used as your data extraction tool. So you don't need to learn anything. You are already using it and you start using it. But I will recommend from my side that these are the three free download tools you can learn. They have tutorials, you have your Revman, you have comprehensive meta analysis, and you have Meta Excel. Now, these are the tools which are free to download. You can use it for all your data extraction and even for your analysis purpose. Comprehensive meta analysis, you can even create your forest plot, and they give you free trials for 10 days. So if you have 2 to 3 ideas ready, all those you can do it in 10 days, and have your forest plots also available with you. Now after doing data extraction, the last, I will say second last, but last part is data analysis. So what is data analysis? Now we are going to do a great thing with whatever data we have collected. We are going to apply statistics. We are going to apply different statistics to identify which are the what is the pooled result. As I told you that when as I told you in my acute myocardial infarction example, that they have already done a study on more than 2,500 patients. So if you combine the data of all 2,500 patients, it will be a very powerful study. So that is what we are going to do in the meta analysis, right? So when you are reading any meta analysis, you must come across with fixed effect model, random effect model, and all those things. So what we are dealing with this models are, we are dealing with heterogeneity. We know heterogeneity is combining oranges, apple and grapes and guava. Like we generally don't do this. So what we do when we want to combine the data, if I want to combine the data, we have certain statistical friends with us. Like you can use fixed effect model. That is what the Petro and other co-workers say. But Cochrane say that you use random effect model, so it is confusing. So I have my own idea that whenever you have low heterogeneity, you use fixed effect model, and when you have high heterogeneity, you use random effect model. And when you have very high heterogeneity, you use your subgroup analysis. So what is heterogeneity? Heterogeneity is the differences in the data and differences in the methodology, differences in the inclusion and exclusion criteria in the studies which we have included in our randomized control trial. So, what is how you will come to know the heterogeneity? By applying your statistical analysis, your maths, you will come out with your I square value, and the I square value will tell you about the heterogeneity. Lower the I square value, lesser the heterogeneity. Higher the I square value, higher the heterogeneity. So if your I square value is between 0 to 25, you can use your fixed effect model. If your I square value is between your 25 to 50, you have to go for random effect model. If it is between 50 to 75, better to do subgrouping and take your I square value to 0 to 25. And if your I square value is more than 75, please don't do meta analysis. That is not at all recommended, because ultimately we are not going to get anything. Everything will be diluted. So, how you can deal with it? Either you can use any of this statistical tool, or you can do you can do meta regression also. That is also one of the way of dealing with heterogeneity. So when not to do meta-analysis, I have told you that if you have more than 75, please don't do meta-analysis. Never combine apple with orange, because it will dilute both of it. You will not get advantage of it. When you have studies of very very high risk of bias, because your meta-analysis will compound the biases, will compound the error, so it will be never useful, or it will not be trustworthy. And when you find that there is a serious publication biases, the summary will be always misleading. So meta-analysis is not recommended that time. I felt that I should include forest plot also, just to introduce you with it. When you read any of the systematic review, and when you are doing systematic review, forest plot is the unavoidable part of it. It will be there. It must be there if you have done your meta-analysis. And forest plot will look like this, not like this. This is the forest, and this is the forest plot of our systematic review and meta-analysis. So it will look like this graphical presentation of your analysis. And the last part is, after doing all these exercises, the last part is you start writing your systematic review and meta-analysis. And for writing, I recommend we can use the checklist like Prisma. Prisma is a very beautiful 27 points checklist, which will tell you what you have to write in title, what should be there in abstract, what should be there in introduction. The methods will have 12 subpoints, the results will have 7 subpoints. So similarly, if you will keep on writing each and every points which are there in Prisma checklist, you will end up writing a complete systematic review and meta-analysis. Similarly, we have checklists for many other. Like for example, Prisma is generally used when you are doing systematic review and meta-analysis. It's a preferred reporting items for systematic review and meta-analysis. You have another checklist like MOOS, which is used for meta-analysis of observational studies in epidemiology. If you see the last part, you have CONCERT for your trials, you have quorum, you have START. But basically, when we are talking about systematic review and meta-analysis, we are talking quorum, we are using Prisma, and we are using MOOS. These are the three checklists which you can use to write your systematic review and meta-analysis. So, a brief revision. We'll define our research question and write the protocol. Get your protocol registered on Cochrane or Prospero. You start your comprehensive search. You select your studies depending upon your well-defined inclusion exclusion criteria. You will do quality assessment of all the studies you have included. You will do data extraction. After doing data extraction, you will apply your statistics, do the data analysis, come out with some forest plot and diamonds from it, and start writing using the most appropriate checklist. So this this brings to me to the end of the presentation with this very close to my heart said by the great person Steve Jobs, that we can do the crazy things if we can, like if we want to change the world, we have to do it and think crazy, do crazy, and change the world. Thank you, Dr. Gagi, for giving me this opportunity, and I hope all the participants now ready to do systematic review and meta-analysis, and we
Thank
can
you
do
so
an entire workshop on this in
Definitely.
future.
I think it was a great session because I think this is a very gray area in terms of when it is to researchers, particularly budding researchers. And it seems very complex. Like as you told, forest plot, it is forest in our mind. So I think the way you put this across, I think it sounds very simple, so that we get encouragement to step into this field. And surely, as you said, by I'm sure by hearing this session, uh, everybody will start thinking on stepping into systematic review. Thank you so much.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.